There's a lot of science in episode 3 of Star Trek Discovery, and considering the speed with which the show goes through it all, you'd be forgiven for missing a few things. The important bit is that Discovery is trying to develop a new form of transport technology, and it's got something to do with spores, right? Yeah, we're a bit confused too, which is why we rewatched the episode to try and break down exactly how that organic propulsion system is supposed to work. And we think we've got it. Sort of. Maybe? Here's how Star Trek Discovery's experimental transport technology works. The spores that everyone keeps talking about, those glowy things, are the key to the new transport technology Locker and his crew are trying to make work. They're called mycelium spores and are harvested from the fungal species
Prototaxidus stelaviatori, which we grow in our cultivation bay.
Mycelium is the vegetative part of a fungus made up of a network of fine white filaments, so they're basically just mushroom spores. These are being grown and harvested aboard Discovery in the classified engineering lab, which can only be entered with a breath scan. Lieutenant Paul Stamets is head of engineering on Discovery, and it's his research along with his colleague Strahl which led to the development of this new transport technology. As Stamets reveals in the episode, he and Strahl were working together when war broke out and Starfleet co-opted their research, splitting them into two different teams on two different ships to try and speed up their research. Stamets is on Discovery and Strahl was on the USS Glenn. So how do these mushroom spores help ships travel light years in mere seconds? Well, this is the tricky bit, but here's what we know. When Locker is explaining the new transport system to Burnham, he says this.
Imagine a microscopic web that spans the entire cosmos. An intergalactic ecosystem. An infinite number of roads leading everywhere.
What he's implying here is that there's an interconnected mycelium web only visible at the cellular level across the entire universe. And if you can tap into it in one place, you can use it to travel to another. I know. It all sounds a bit unbelievable, but it's actually inspired by real-life mycologist Paul Stamets, who believes that there are many currently untapped uses for fungi in our world. Although maybe not space travel. Star Trek Discovery co-creator Brian Fuller obviously thinks he's onto something, as he incorporated the idea into the show and named Anthony Rapp's Lieutenant Stamets after him. According to the real-life Stamets, the largest organism on the planet is a mycelial mat 2,200 acres in size and 2,000 years old in eastern Oregon. So it's perhaps not so unbelievable to imagine one which spans space. When Locker tells Burnham that she herself has jumped across a mycelial network, that's when the code black was going off, he's talking about the Discovery entering the mycelial web and travelling to another point within it and coming back out. During his TED Talk, Stamets explains that mycelium infuses all landscapes and can hold up to 30 times its mass, so if something similar existed across space, it would be able to hold a spaceship. But how does that spaceship travel? Well, in nature, mycelium also transfers nutrients between plants, so if we put our sci-fi hats on again, we can imagine this ship being transferred in a similar way. What allows the ship to travel or be transferred at such speed is still unclear, but that might be a point for future episodes. Although Discovery has only managed to jump hundreds of kilometres within the network so far, the USS Glenn was travelling over 90 light years away in 1.3 seconds. Before the accident, that is. So what did they do differently? Well, obviously, the show isn't keen on giving away everything in this episode, as it's no doubt going to be a season-long plot point, but there are some clues. The first comes when Stamets is talking to his counterpart Strahl on the Glenn. Strahl talks about a recent breakthrough which has allowed his ship to travel much further than the Discovery. And when Stamets quizzes him about it, he says this.
All I can say is there are unexpected benefits to not growing your own.
He's surely talking about the spores and seems to be implying that if you harvest them from naturally occurring locations rather than growing them in a lab, then it helps the transport process in some way. Are they perhaps more potent when harvested naturally? That's not the only difference between the two ships' processes though. When Stamets and his crew hear about the tragedy which has befallen the Glenn, it's revealed that the room which holds the equipment they want to transfer over has been shielded.
Shielded?
Stamets is surprised by this, implying that it's not a normal part of the procedure. Finally, when the boarding party is gathering up everything they need from the Glenn, Cadet Tilly reveals that there's been a navigational hack on their system, and that there's also a device in the reaction cube, both of which make no sense to the Discovery team. They could be the reason that the Glenn team's tests were so much more successful than Discovery's, but they could equally be the reason it was ultimately a disaster. Don't forget, when the boarding team first see the Glenn from the outside, Stamets says,
You see the etchings on the hull? It's evidence of catastrophic pseudosac rupture.
which is basically just a scientific way of saying something went wrong with the spores. When they board the Glenn, we see that the crew are dead and their bodies are all twisted up. Is this perhaps because of the massive displacement caused by trying to hit Spirin 900? In case you were wondering, Spirin is a made-up Star Trek Discovery measurement related to the rate at which the spores bloom. Whatever the cause, it's clear we and the crew of the Discovery don't have all the answers yet, but the fact that this form of transport doesn't appear in any of the Trek series suggests it's either doomed to fail or so dangerous Starfleet has to ban it. That's everything we know about how Star Trek Discovery's organic propulsion system is supposed to work, and we hope it cleared up a few things for you. We should find out more as the season continues, but let us know what you thought in the comments below, and for more TV videos and analysis, keep it here on Games Radar Plus.